Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is only my second upload, so bear with me as I try to navigate the world of YouTube. Clearly, if you're watching this, you probably watched my first video. If not, I suggest you go check that one out. I'll just link it down below. It's not like you have to go through much content on my channel to find it because I'm a noob. So in my last video, I talked about how I'm on medical leave, and I decided that I would make my second video describing why the heck I'm on medical leave, because like first glance it doesn't seem like I'm that sick or ill or whatever, but like I said in my previous video, you cannot see inside people's bodies, so there's actually a lot going on that doesn't quite reach the surface. Also, in my last video, I discussed how, despite the fact that this routine procedure that went horribly wrong could have killed me, like despite all of that, a lot of good things came out of it, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So let's get into today's story. Because I'm new to the world of YouTube and all things really social media, you have no idea who I am, and that's okay. You know, that's why we're here. We're gonna get to know each other through these videos and these different stories I'm gonna be sharing with you. I have a list of videos I plan to do, but right now we're gonna talk about medical stuff. Now, I'm no doctor. I'm no Dr. Mike. If you don't know who he is, I'm gonna link his profile below because you need to check him out. Amazing person, doctor, and content just all in one. So I'm no doctor, but I like to think I know quite a bit about the disease I have. With that said, let me explain. So I have an autoimmune disorder called celiac disease. On the surface, the best way to describe celiac disease is that it's a severe reaction to gluten. That's kind of the basis of it, but as someone who has the disease, and maybe you have the disease or know somebody who has this disease, there's actually a lot more to it than just an allergy to the gluten, like protein or whatever it's called, which is found in things that are made from wheat, barley, flour, so basically everything. When it comes to celiac disease, like I said, the body cannot digest, that's the word I'm looking for, gluten. When it does, my body starts to attack itself because it thinks like the gluten protein or particles or whatever they're called is something foreign that shouldn't be in my body. Kind of like when you have a virus, like your white blood cell counts or your red blood cell counts. I don't know which ones. I'm not a doctor, like I've said. But Dr. Mike, maybe you can clarify which blood cells attack viruses. I don't know. I would like to know. Because the more you know. Am I right? As previously stated in my last video, I'm a dork, but you know what? It's okay. I embrace the fact that I'm a dork, and I hope you do too. As I was saying, so basically my body starts to attack the gluten protein particle, whatever it's called, because it thinks it needs to fight it like it's something bad, even though it's realistically not. But in the process of doing that, my body starts to attack itself. Now this ends up resulting in severe stomach pain, as well as like frequent bathroom breaks, if you know what I mean. And hey, I'm just being real here. Like I said in my previous video, in my videos I want to do real talk and not beat around the bush. So we're just talking real stuff here, medical things, natural bodily functions. If that makes you uncomfortable, you might want to skedaddle. I hope you don't though. I want you to stay and learn about celiac disease and the complications that kind of came out of this whole situation. So to avoid the unpleasant symptoms of what we tend to call gluten poisoning, it fits. If you have celiac disease, you get it. To avoid any of those unpleasant symptoms, so pain, rashes, just vomiting, nausea, diarrhea, all that stuff, the only way to really avoid all that is to avoid gluten as a whole. So this means sticking to a gluten-free diet. which I can tell you is not easy because gluten is in everything and things you wouldn't even think had gluten in it until after you're like, oh my gosh, why am I in so much pain? Why am I vomiting? Why am I going to the bathroom so much? Because this thing you didn't suspect had gluten in it did. I personally have been on a gluten-free diet for the past 7 years since my diagnosis, and I have had a lot of internal healing since, because when you do continue to eat gluten despite having celiac disease, your body, in the process of attacking itself, causes damage, specifically to your digestive tract, like your stomach lining, your small intestine, even your large colon, large colon. Again, I'm not medically sound or educated. I meant your large intestine / colon, not your large colon. I kind of blended the two words together. Whatever, you get what I mean. And one part of that damage that happens is actually pretty significant. So on your small intestine, you have these little hair-like things. I don't know how to pronounce the word, and I'm not gonna try, because as we've established, medical terminology is not my strong suit. And these hair-like things essentially absorb the nutrients from the foods we eat. Now, when you ingest gluten and you have celiac disease, it causes damage, and those little hairs start to either shrink or disappear altogether, meaning that your body can't really absorb nutrients and vitamins the way it should. So that results in vitamin deficiencies. For myself, I have iron deficiency anemia, so I have a hard time kind of keeping my iron levels at a good, safe level, which is not fun. Like, there's nothing fun about having a disease. And I'm sure you're probably wondering why it's called a disease. Now, a disease is something that is not curable but treatable. So for celiac disease, you can't cure it. You're gonna go the rest of your life with this disease, but you can maintain the nasty symptoms that come with it by avoiding gluten and taking extra vitamins and doing things to keep yourself healthy. And so for the past 7 years, I've been doing these things to stay healthy and to avoid the unpleasant symptoms of gluten poisoning, because that's not fun for your body or your mental health, really. Like, it's not fun feeling sick all the time. But despite, following 7 years of gluten-free diet and having significant healing from what I've discovered, this past January, so of 2021, I started to experience a new stomach pain. Now, I always have stomach pain. That's just part of having celiac disease. Like, you're always experiencing stomach pain and discomfort, bloating, all that fun stuff. Please note the sarcasm, okay? I'm a very sarcastic, sassy person. So please know when I say things and I laugh afterward, it's because I'm being sarcastic. Yeah, please don't take things personally. If you have celiac disease, like, I'm not obviously degrading you or making fun of you, because we're part of the same boat. Like, I have it too. So I would never make fun of you for a disease that you can't control. Anywho, that's just my tangent to cover my butt. Let's continue. So like I was saying, I'm used to stomach pain. That's just something I'm used to and I kind of live with on a daily basis. But this pain was different. It was like something I hadn't really experienced before. And on top of the pain, I found myself feeling full after eating only a couple bites of like a meal or even like a little snack. Despite the very little amounts I was eating, I felt like I had eaten like an entire buffet, and I would start vomiting. And I know that's gross and I'm sorry, I'm just being real. And I started to lose weight very quickly and very like substantially. I ended up losing like 10 pounds in a week just from not eating. Now, I'm not saying this to like promote the idea of starving yourself to lose weight, because that is not okay. In my situation, I was not intentionally starving myself. Let me just clarify. I physically could not eat. I just felt like my stomach was always full despite going like hours without anything, which is a concern. And especially with the weight loss, like, again, being real, I was like in my 190s at the beginning of the year and I'm now down to my 150s. So in the last like 8-9 months, I've lost 40 pounds respectively from being sick. I've always been on the bigger side, so losing weight is kind of like a blessing, but Again, this is not the way to do it, and it's not the way I ever expected to lose that weight. With all these new symptoms, I decided to reach out to a local doctor who referred me to a new specialist in the area. I was sent for, blood work and all that stuff, and then back in May of this year, I had a gastroscopy to check the upper GI tract, which is, your esophagus, your stomach, and your small intestine. The gastroscopy is a routine procedure, it's a day surgery thing. You go in and out, no big deal. I went in for my procedure, and they knocked me out, which, free sleep. Am I right? Am I right? I'm a dork. We've established that. But hey, you're the one continuing to watch my stuff, so I must be doing something right. Yeah, so I got free sleep, and while I was asleep, they stuck like scopes and tools down my throat to kind of it's like a little camera on a snake sort of thing, and they go down to get an internal view of what's going on. Everything looked relatively normal. They explained to me there was definitely a lot of healing compared to my previous scans from my gastroscopy 7 years ago. So the gluten-free diet is definitely working, but they took a biopsy of my small intestine just to be safe. Weeks go by, results come back, and everything's negative, which is good. That's what you want to hear, is that your tests come back negative. But in the back of your mind, you're like, well, then what is going on? I'm listening to my body, something is not right. Thankfully, my specialist is absolutely amazing. And he was like, okay, the upper GI tract scope showed nothing. Your blood work showed nothing. We checked your thyroid, it showed nothing. So let's check the one area we haven't checked yet. I'm just giving you a moment of silence to guess what he meant. If you're confused, let me just put it out there. We checked the complete upper half of my GI tract, but not the lower. I can see the light bulb going off now. So my specialist had me scheduled for a colonoscopy, which I have had before. I had to have it when I was first diagnosed with celiac disease 7 years ago, so it's been almost a decade, and it was something. It's not the most pleasant thing, but it's also not the worst thing in the world. But this time around, it really proved to be problematic. I mean, the prep alone is quite uncomfortable and miserable. I mean, you can't eat properly for a few days up to your procedure. The week prior, you can't even have anything that has seeds, nuts, corn, anything like that, because that stuff can actually get stuck in your system, into in your bowels, which I learned was part of my problem. I'm pretty sure it was, at least, because I had to take some. When you have a colonoscopy, you have to be completely cleared. You have to have a bodily cleanse. You cannot have anything in your system. So you take laxatives. So yes, you do poop a lot. Again, I'm just being real. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. That's just the matter of fact. There's a 4-day prep of just laxatives prior to your procedure. The first 2 days are pills, and these are strong laxatives that basically force things that are stuck in your system out of your body. So it's painful. And then the day prior to your surgery, it's a liquid laxative, so you just have to drink lots of water with this powder laxative. It's not that bad, to be honest. It's tasteless, odorless. You can mix it with any clear liquid. I had some with Gatorade and some with water, coffee even. And then you kind of just let your body do its thing and react to the laxative, and then you're cleansed out. It actually is a pretty good feeling, to be honest. It's a gross process, but hey, you feel good. So flash forward, it is September 7th, it is 11 a.m. and I make my way to the local hospital. I head up on to day surgery. I get suited in my lovely gown and my robe, because you don't have anything on underneath your gown, so to make sure your bum's not hanging out like you see in movies, you wear a gown. Thank goodness. So then I'm escorted into the surgical room. I see my specialist, and I'm like, hey, good to see you again. I hate that it has had to come to this, but here we are. And so they prep you, they put the little cannula, what is it called? Guys, I don't know medical terms. It's the little oxygen thing. So they give you some, pure oxygen. And because of COVID, I have to wear a mask of my own. And Then they stick the IV in, which my veins don't like to cooperate for. So I actually had 2 points of entry for my IV because my vein kept collapsing. So they have to like switch back and forth. So I had an IV here, like right there actually. Not where that scar is, but like right there. And then I had another one actually where right there's a scar. So once they get the IV in, you know, and you're comfortable laying down in the right position, they inject you with whatever it's called that knocks you out. Fun fact though, right before I got knocked out, like I said, I work with kids. And so one of my kids, their mom is, like I knew she worked in the hospital, but I didn't know where. And right before I got knocked out and put under, I discovered she's on my surgical team. So he was like, hey, it's so-and-so's mom. And I was like, hey, this is not a great time. I'm now about to go to sleep knowing you're gonna see my rear end. Anywho, everything went dark and I woke up maybe an hour and a half later, which is pretty quick. But that's because I learned they weren't able to actually finish the procedure. So the reason I was originally having the procedure was to look for signs of Crohn's or colitis, which are more severe autoimmune disorders that kind of branch off of celiac disease. Unfortunately, the routine procedure, as you know, went wrong. I discovered that very quickly. I was still asleep, everything's dark, my eyes are closed, and I start hearing someone calling my name, and I register that it's a nurse trying to wake me up. Before I could even like fully regain consciousness or open my eyes, I felt the most unimaginable pain. The only way I can really describe it is like, it felt as though someone were stabbing me in my lower right abdomen. Obviously, I've never been stabbed before, but I'd imagine that's what it would feel like. It was like a hot, sharp, radiating pain, and I just barely awake, barely conscious. I'm confused. I have no idea what's going on. All I know is I'm in a lot of pain, and I just start like screaming and crying and thrashing around and causing a whole scene in the endo unit, which I apologize for. So it takes a couple nurses to kind of pin me down and inject me with like morphine or some sort of pain relief. After like a minute or so, the pain is still severe, so they give me some more, and then I kind of start to calm down a little bit. And at this point, like my eyes are still closed. I'm not even fully awake yet. I just keep repeating like, it hurts, it hurts. And then I hear one of the nurses yell, you know, go get the surgeon, which is my specialist. Right before he arrived, they gave me another dose of pain relief, and he comes to my bedside, and I finally open my eyes, and there he is, just, you know, staring down at me. And I can't see his full face. He has his mask on, of course. But his eyes were very like apologetic and worried, and that really confirmed my suspicion that something was wrong. So Dr. Schulman, my specialist, he explained that during the procedure they found a polyp. A polyp is like a small mass tumor-like thing. They're very common in the human body. You can have them really anywhere. Like my older sister, she has them all up in her nasal passage, and it actually causes a lot of sinus issues, unfortunately. Now, they're usually relatively safe and easy to remove depending where they're located. The only problem is that usually when you remove one, they tend to come back. It's a redundant process, but it all depends on the situation, whether it's worth removing or not. In my situation, the polyp was less than 2 centimeters in size, so it was considered safe to remove. And Dr. Schulman had removed over 40,000 colon polyps at this point in his career, so he was just gonna go ahead and remove it like he would any other polyp, which makes sense. However, my body decided to like retaliate basically. So upon removing the polyp, nobody realized how deep into the colon wall it actually was like connected. So when they removed it, it ruptured. Sorry, there was like a dust, like a dog, you know, like in a Up, where he's like, squirrel. What's his name? Kevin? Something like that. Anyhow, let me get back on track and re-explain what the heck happened. Now that the fluff is gone, let me explain. So yeah, when they removed the polyp, it caused a hole to rupture in my colon wall. Now, the medical term for this situation is called a perforated bowel. That is one medical term I can tell you because I kind of lived it, so I know about it. Like, I'm not a bowel specialist or anything like that, but I can tell you what a perforated bowel is, and essentially it's when, like I said, a hole ruptures in your intestinal wall. So if you think of your intestines like a hose, like when you're watering your grass, like the water flows through the tube and it flows, well, hopefully smoothly, and it comes out the other end like it should. But if there's a hole in the hose, the water's gonna start, you know, kind of escaping through that hole, and then next thing you know, you have a mud puddle over here when you didn't want one, and it's no fun for anybody. Your intestines are essentially the exact same thing. So when you eat, the food gets broken down and it goes through the tubes, and then it comes out obviously in the form of a bowel movement. Because there was a hole though in my colon, things started to escape out into my abdominal cavity. Now this is extremely dangerous because things that escape in that situation are bacteria, feces, gases, and also the air that they kind of inject into you when they're doing the scope is now released into your body, which is again not a good situation. Thankfully, the rupture occurred when I was already under and while I was already in the midst of a procedure. So my specialist, being the educated professional man he is, used these clips, which I don't know the medical term for, but they're like little metal clips, and he fastened them to the hole to like force it shut. Like he was clipping the hole shut basically. So I had like, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 clips in my right lower abdomen forcing the hole shut. If you're putting 2 and 2 together here, when I woke up from the anesthetic, I did not have any pain relief in my system. So the pain I was feeling was the force of metal clips forcing my intestines closed. Gross, yes. Painful, unbearable. Like I can't even describe how painful it was. But so that's why I woke up in pain. My colon was being forced shut by pieces of metal. Now, despite the hole being closed, obviously things escaped into my abdominal cavity, and to ensure a bacterial infection did not start, which could lead to sepsis, I had to be on antibiotics for the following week. They started me on that right away, but also they needed to make sure that the clips would hold up to ensure that nothing else would leak through my colon into my body, because like I said, that could lead to sepsis, which ultimately can lead to death. So I was in a pretty serious situation, which resulted in the admission to the ICU, or as we call it here at our hospital, the CCU, which is the critical care unit. So after everything was explained to me about the complications, what happened, I was transferred to the ICU, where I had to stay for the first 24 hours of my hospital admission. Despite the pain and the nausea, for the most part, I felt fine. Like when my brother-in-law came to drop off some toiletries, because I'd be staying for a little while, like I felt fine. I just was I couldn't really move, because anytime I moved, like it felt like I was tearing the hole, even though that wasn't the case, but it was painful. So I felt fine, and I was like, I don't really think I need to be in the ICU. But as the day went on, like, and the night went on, I understood why I was in the critical care unit. I was vomiting a lot. I was in extreme pain. I was nauseous. I was having like, you know, hot flashes. Like, I was so just not myself. The concern was that if this progressed, I would have to have emergency surgery to remove the clips and suture the hole shut, which would be a whole other recovery process in itself. But thankfully, after the first 24 hours of just being super sick, not being able to eat, just in all sorts of pain and discomfort, it was looking like surgery was not going to be needed, which was a blessing. So before I could be kind of downgraded from a critical patient, I had to have a CT scan to make sure that, you know, nothing else really escaped, and just to be safe, which again, better safe than sorry. So I went into the CT room, I don't know what it's called. I lay down on the bed, and I had to raise my arms above my head, which really hurt, because like I'm stretching and like, oh, the pain. And then they injected me with this dye. I don't really know what it was, I forget what it's called, but essentially they injected it so they could get a better view of when they did the scan. And before they inject me with it, they're like, you're gonna get like a really hot flash over your body, you're gonna feel like you're pain, but we promise you're not. And I was kind of like, that's a weird thing to say. What do you mean? How does it feel like you're pain when you're not? Unless like your water breaks when you're pregnant. I don't know. Anyway, sure enough, they inject the dye, and a moment later I got a hot flash all over my body, and then I felt like I was peeing all over the room. And when it was done, they wheeled me out, and sure enough, I didn't pee. It was the weirdest thing. If you know anything about CT scans and the dye they use, or have had it done, then you understand. You feel like you're peeing inside the machine. Which is a scary thought, because water, liquid, and electronics don't mix. So also, what is the machine called? Is it just called a CAT scan? Like, or is there a term for the chamber, like the chamber of secrets? like what is it called? I don't know. Dr. Mike, what is it called? Is it just a CT scan machine, or is there a different name for it? Let me know, and correct anything I've said in here that's not medically accurate, because I don't want to give false information. So the scan was done, showed nothing else got through, so the clips are holding up, no surgery was needed. Awesome. I was downgraded to the surgical unit and the inpatient unit, so I ended up having to stay for a couple more days because I just wasn't able to eat or get my strength up, and I was in a lot of pain and vomiting and just all that fun nasty stuff. It was great. But I must say that I, despite a very just scary situation, I had, this is gonna sound weird, but a wonderful experience. Like, for one, my specialist and his team, incredible, just absolutely incredible. My ICU nurses and doctor, amazing, took such amazing care of me. And then my nurse who was with me while I was in the inpatient unit, his name is Z. He was young, probably like in his 20s like myself, and he was just the sweetest person ever. Like, if I was throwing up, he'd be like, oh, it's okay, girl, like, I'm gonna stay with you. And like, he was just so amazing. Honestly, the whole staff at the Royal, not the Royal, that's a different hospital. I'm not gonna give that hospital a shout out. Let me rephrase that. The staff at the North Bay Regional Health Center are absolutely fantastic, amazing, and I cannot rave enough about them. They made a horrible situation just not feel so horrible, and I really appreciate everyone in the medical field for all you do. You are not appreciated enough, so I just want to take this time to say thank you for who you are and what you do. So right before I'm allowed to actually leave the hospital, 4 days after my initial arrival, you know, Dr. Shulman, my specialist, comes in, and he kind of stands there kind of timid, and he just felt really bad about the whole thing, because it was just supposed to be like an exploratory colonoscopy, and it turned into a life or death situation. And honestly, I don't blame him for what happened, because as he said, it's like a medical mystery. He's removed over 40,000 colon polyps, and this has never ever happened before. And so he felt bad, but I was like, no, it's cool. Like, there's nothing you could have done, really. Like, what happened, and it's over with, and I'm good. I get to leave the hospital soon, so like, and you know, continue my recovery at home. It's all good. But before I could leave, he needed to deliver some news. They got the biopsy results of the polyp back, and it turned out it was a malignant polyp, meaning there were cancer cells inside of the polyp. So essentially, had they not removed it, the cancer would eventually essentially come out of the polyp and attached itself to my colon, and I would have had colon cancer. So thankfully, the cancer was found before it had the opportunity to spread. There's no traces left of it, which is just amazing, and I'm just so grateful for this whole ordeal. So yeah, it was a scary situation. Like, it's been 3 weeks and I'm still on medical leave. I'm still struggling to learn how to eat and enjoy food, because like, I haven't had proper food in weeks, because solid foods are not really sitting well with me, and I guess my taste buds have changed, and so things I used to enjoy I don't anymore, and so it's just a whole situation. But I'm grateful all of this happened, because they found the cancer before it was able to really like manifest into full-blown colon cancer. It's like, the whole situation is a medical mystery, my specialist explained, because like, normally you don't find colon polyps in someone, you know, in their early to mid-20s like myself. It's not like it's impossible, it's very rare. And to have a polyp so small be cancerous was also very rare. So this whole situation was just like a medical mystery, but I believe in divine intervention, so I truly believe that God had his hand in all of this, and that everything kind of happened the way it did for the better. So like I said, even though I'm still, you know, going on 4 weeks post surgery. Like, I'm still struggling with the pain and nausea and stuff, but I wouldn't treat it because who knows where the cancer could be if we didn't catch it. And so that kind of explains why I'm on medical leave. The first couple days being home after I was discharged were awful. Like, I almost forced myself to go back because I was so weak. Like, walking, standing up, moving was just so painful. But thankfully I've gotten much better. I'm actually able to go out, and if I need to go to the store, I can do that without feeling completely like I'm gonna pass out. It's still a lot for my body because I spent weeks in bed. So I'm still adjusting to being mobile and, you know, getting out. Yeah, so physically on the outside it doesn't really look like I need to be on medical leave, but internally it's a disaster. So that is my story for you today about how a routine procedure, yeah, could have killed me, but ultimately it saved my life in the end because it found the cancer, which I, again, am super grateful for. Oh, you're probably wondering, like, what does that mean now, like, for the future? Well, because polyps tend to come back, and because my whole situation has been a mess, I have to go for regular scans now to keep on top of the development of polyps and make sure that we're keeping on top of the potential for future colon cancer. It sucks that I have to worry about something when I'm in my 20s, but, you know, it could have been a lot worse, and I'm very grateful for the staff at the North Bay Regional Health Center for all they have done and all they continue to do. So there's a silver lining, and like I said, I feel like there was a lot of divine intervention in this whole situation. So that's my story for you. Also, before I skedaddle, I wanted to share something with you. So in my last video, I shared about a book that I bought in the midst of like a mental breakdown. I shouldn't laugh about that. Like I said, it's over with, it's fine, I'm safe, everything's good. But I shared a book, like I gave a book and an author a shout out, and I decided that every single video I'm going to do that. So, without further ado, this is the book I'm currently reading. It's called The Guest List by Lucy Foley. It is a murder mystery suspense that keeps you guessing till the end, which, as I've said before, is my favorite kind of book. I'm about halfway done, and it's pretty good. Obviously, I'm not going to share details because I don't want to spoil it, but it is well written. It's set in Ireland, so like I try to give myself like an Irish accent when I'm reading, but it doesn't really work. So I just pretend they're somewhere else. Yeah, it's a great mix of like drama, mystery. There's some, like, it's a wedding, so there's obviously some like 50 Shades of Grey situations that occur. So if you're a little uncomfortable by that, just skip over those parts because it's a good read. I highly recommend. Again, this isn't sponsored. This is just something I'm gonna do in my videos because I'm an avid book reader and I want other people to enjoy classic things like reading, because in the world of technology, these, I feel like, are going extinct. Like, yeah, there's audiobooks and podcasts, which help some people, but I like the classic, let me sit down and physically open and read a book. That's just me. I'm very traditional. Anywho, I gotta get going because I have places to be. Not anywhere major. I'm just going over to my sister's house to see family because it's lonely here on medical leave by myself. Hence why I'm doing these videos. Anywho, if you like the video, press like. If you have any opinions, comments, or anything like that, just comment. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you struggle with any sort of autoimmune disorder, or if you've had a similar kind of mishap when it came to a medical procedure. Also, subscribe, because that's something YouTubers need to emphasize. Again, my channel's new. I'm easygoing, so like I'm not gonna be offended if you don't subscribe or like or comment. Hey, like if you didn't like it, just I'll take your silence and your lack of response as your criticism. Huh? Fair deal? Yeah. Anyway, it was nice to chat with you and share another story, and I'll see you next time. Bye!